Let me begin with something that may challenge the way you've been looking at your life. Most people believe that their reality is shaped by external circumstances, by luck, by opportunities, by other people. But that is not where creation begins. It begins within you, in your state of being. Your state is not just your mood for the moment. It is the sum total of what you accept as true about yourself. It is the identity you silently carry, the feeling you return to again and again, and whether you are aware of it or not, this state is constantly projecting itself outward, shaping the conditions of your life. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. If deep within you you feel uncertain, overlooked, or unworthy, then even the greatest opportunities will pass through your hands, distorted by that inner lens. You may try to think positively, you may try to force confidence, but if your underlying state remains unchanged, your outer world will continue to echo that same limitation. On the other hand, when you begin to occupy a new state, when you feel yourself to be capable, chosen, powerful, something remarkable happens. The world does not resist you in the same way. Circumstances begin to reorganize. People respond differently. Opportunities seem to appear at just the right moment. It feels almost as if life is cooperating with you, but in truth it is simply reflecting you. This is why effort alone is not the answer. Struggle cannot override a state of lack. You can work harder, push further, chase endlessly, but if you are doing so from a place of I am not enough, you will only reinforce that very experience. Instead, the shift must happen at the level of identity. Ask yourself, who am I being right now? Not what am I doing, but what am I accepting as true about myself? Because that acceptance is the seed from which your entire reality grows. If you begin to assume with quiet conviction that you are already the person you desire to be, if you allow yourself to feel it, to embody it, to live from it, then your subconscious mind receives a new instruction. It no longer operates from your past conditioning. It begins to organize your thoughts, your reactions, and your perceptions in alignment with this new state. And as your inner world changes, your outer world has no choice but to follow. This is not about pretending. It is about recognizing that your current reality is nothing more than the outpicturing of a previous state. Change the state and you change the projection. So do not wait for evidence before you shift. Do not look to the world for permission. The moment you decide to feel differently about yourself, to claim a new identity, you have already begun the transformation. Everything that follows is simply the unfolding of that decision. Change your state and you change your life. Now, once you begin to understand that your state is the cause of your reality, the next question naturally becomes, how do you actually change that state? How do you move from an old identity into a new one in a way that feels natural and lasting? The answer is far simpler than most people expect, yet it is often overlooked because it requires discipline in the unseen. The subconscious mind does not respond to logic, reasoning, or occasional effort. It responds to repetition. Whatever you impress upon it consistently, it accepts as truth without question, without resistance. It does not judge whether something is good or bad for you. It simply takes what is repeated and turns it into your automatic way of being. Think about it. Every belief you hold today was formed through repetition. Every doubt, every fear, every limitation was not created in a single moment. It was built over time through repeated thoughts, repeated reactions, repeated inner conversations. And because these patterns have been repeated so often, they now feel natural to you. They feel like this is just who I am. But that is not who you are. That is simply what you have practiced. If repetition created your current identity, then repetition can also transform it. This is where your power lies, not in forcing change overnight, but in consciously choosing what you repeat daily. The thoughts you allow, the words you speak to yourself, the images you dwell upon, these are not insignificant moments. They are instructions. They are programming your subconscious mind, shaping your future experiences. Most people are repeating their limitations without even realizing it. They wake up and think the same thoughts. They react in the same ways. They tell themselves the same stories about why something won't work, why they're not ready, why success is difficult. And with each repetition, those beliefs sink deeper, becoming more solid, more real. Now imagine reversing that process. Imagine that instead of repeating doubt, you begin to repeat certainty. Instead of reinforcing fear, you begin to affirm confidence, not once or twice, but consistently, deliberately, day after day. At first it may feel unfamiliar, it may even feel unnatural. But that is only because you are interrupting an old pattern. With persistence, the new pattern begins to take root. Your subconscious does not care whether the repetition is old or new, it only responds to what is most consistent. And as you continue, something shifts. The thoughts that once felt forced begin to feel normal. The identity you were trying to assume begins to feel like your own. And eventually what was once practiced becomes your automatic state. This is why consistency will always outperform intensity. A single moment of motivation cannot override years of conditioning. But small, repeated acts of mental discipline done daily have the power to completely rewrite your inner world. So be mindful of what you are rehearsing in your mind, because whether you are aware of it or not, you are always repeating something. You are always reinforcing a version of yourself. Choose that version consciously. Repeat what you wish to become until it becomes who you are. As you begin to take control of repetition, you will naturally come to understand that thoughts alone are not enough. Words, when left dry and mechanical, rarely penetrate deeply into the subconscious. There is, however, a far more powerful medium through which the subconscious receives instruction, and that is imagination. The subconscious mind does not think in terms of language the way the conscious mind does. It responds to images, to sensory impressions, to experiences that feel real. When you imagine something vividly, you are not merely daydreaming, you are creating a reality within. And to the subconscious, that inner experience is just as valid as anything perceived through the senses. This is why visualization holds such extraordinary power. It allows you to bypass resistance, to move beyond logic, and to impress a new state directly onto the deeper levels of your mind. But understand this clearly. Casual imagining will not produce transformation. It is not about seeing fleeting pictures or wishful thinking. It is about entering into the scene fully, as though it is happening now. You must not observe it from a distance, you must become a participant within it. Feel the environment, hear the sounds, notice the details. Most importantly, feel the reality of it. If you are imagining success, do not simply see it, feel what it is like to already be successful. If you are imagining confidence, do not just picture yourself acting confident. Feel the certainty, the calm, the natural ease of being that person. When you do this correctly, something shifts. The boundary between imagination and reality begins to dissolve. The subconscious accepts the experience as real, and once accepted, it begins to organize your outer world to reflect that inner image. Many people underestimate this process because they are conditioned to believe that imagination is not real, that it is merely fantasy. But everything you see around you was first imagined in some form. Every creation, every achievement, every transformation began as an internal image before it became external fact. You are using this power all the time, whether consciously or unconsciously. When you worry, you are imagining negative outcomes. When you doubt, you are creating mental pictures of failure. And through repetition, these images impress themselves upon your subconscious, eventually expressing as real-life experiences. So the question is not whether you are visualizing, the question is, what are you visualizing? If you can discipline your imagination, you gain access to one of the most direct ways to reshape your identity. Instead of allowing random thoughts to dictate your inner world, you deliberately construct scenes that imply your wish is already fulfilled. Do not focus on the process of getting there. Do not concern yourself with how it will happen. The subconscious does not need instructions on how. It only needs a clear, consistent impression of the end. And as you return to this imagined reality, again and again, with feeling, with conviction, it begins to feel familiar. It begins to feel natural. And once it feels natural, it becomes your state. From that point forward, your actions, your reactions, and your opportunities will align with this new inner picture. Not because you forced them, but because they are the inevitable expression of what you have accepted as true within. So use your imagination wisely, and use it deliberately. See what you desire, feel it as real, and live from that vision until it becomes your reality. As you begin to discipline your imagination, you will notice something even more constant, more subtle, yet equally powerful shaping your subconscious mind, and that is your inner dialogue. Long after a visualization ends, long after a moment of focus passes, this quiet conversation within you continues. It is with you in every situation, every reaction, every interpretation of the world around you. You may not always be aware of it, but you are constantly speaking to yourself. You are commenting on what is happening, assigning meaning to events, defining who you are in relation to everything you experience. And over time, this internal voice becomes so familiar, so automatic, that you begin to mistake it for truth. But it is not truth, it is habit. If your inner dialogue is filled with doubt, criticism, and limitation, then no matter how much effort you make externally, you will always be pulled back into that same identity. You may attempt to think positively for a moment, but if your dominant inner conversation contradicts it, the old pattern will prevail. This is why many people feel stuck. They try to change their actions without changing the voice within. They try to behave like a confident person while internally repeating, "I'm not good enough," or "this won't work for me." And the subconscious, which is always listening, accepts the repeated message, not the temporary effort. Understand this clearly. Your subconscious does not distinguish between what you say out loud and what you say silently within. Both are instructions. Both are shaping your identity. So if you wish to transform your life, you must begin to take control of this inner conversation. Listen to yourself, not casually, but with intention. Notice the phrases you repeat, the assumptions you make, the tone you carry when you speak to yourself. Because within those patterns lies the blueprint of your current reality. And once you become aware, you gain the ability to change it. You do not fight the old voice, you replace it. When doubt arises, you do not entertain it, you redirect it. When the mind begins to repeat old limitations, you introduce a new narrative. Calmly, consistently, without force, begin to speak to yourself as the person you have chosen to become. If you desire confidence, let your inner dialogue reflect certainty. If you desire success, let your inner voice assume achievement. Speak from the end, not from the lack. Speak as though it is already done. At first, it may feel unnatural. That is expected. You are interrupting a pattern that has been repeated for years. But just as repetition created the old voice, repetition will establish the new one. And over time, something remarkable happens. The new dialogue no longer feels forced. It becomes your natural way of thinking. Your reactions change. Your perceptions shift. Situations that once triggered doubt now evoke calm certainty. This is not because the world has changed. It is because the voice within you has changed. And that voice is powerful. It is not merely commentary, it is creation in motion. It is constantly directing your subconscious, shaping how you see yourself, and determining how you show up in the world. So choose your words carefully, even the silent ones. Because in the end, you are not just listening to your inner dialogue, you are becoming it. Speak within as the person you intend to be, and you will become that person. By now you can see how your state, your repetition, your imagination, and your inner dialogue all work together to shape the subconscious. But there is one element that determines the speed and depth of this transformation more than anything else, and that is emotion. You can repeat affirmations all day long. You can visualize scenes over and over again. You can even attempt to control your inner dialogue with discipline. But if there is no feeling behind it, if it remains dry and mechanical, it rarely penetrates the deeper layers of the mind. The subconscious does not respond to empty words, it responds to the feeling that accompanies them. Emotion is what gives life to your thoughts. It is what signals to the subconscious, this matters, this is real. Without it, your efforts remain on the surface. With it, they sink deeply, taking root and becoming part of your identity. Think of a moment in your life that left a strong emotional impact on you. You did not need to repeat it 100 times for it to stay with you. The intensity of the feeling impressed it instantly. Whether it was joy, fear, excitement, or pain, the emotion itself carried the experience into your subconscious and anchored it there. This same principle applies when you consciously shape your inner world. When you imagine your desired reality, it is not enough to simply see it. You must feel it. If you are imagining success, what does it feel like to already be successful? Is it a sense of calm certainty? Is it pride? Is it gratitude? Allow that feeling to arise within you, not as something distant, but as something present, something real, something alive. Emotion bridges the gap between imagination and belief. Without emotion, your mind treats your thoughts as possibilities. With emotion, it accepts them as reality. This is why many people struggle. They say the right words, they attempt the right techniques, but internally they still feel doubt, fear, or impatience. And those feelings, being stronger and more consistent, are what the subconscious ultimately responds to. So the goal is not to force yourself to believe something intellectually. The goal is to generate the feeling of it being true. And this is done gently, not through strain. You do not need to create overwhelming emotion. Even a subtle, genuine feeling, if sustained consistently, is enough. A quiet sense of knowing, a calm confidence, a natural acceptance that this is who I am now. As you return to this feeling again and again, it becomes familiar. And once a feeling becomes familiar, it begins to feel natural. And once it feels natural, it becomes your state. From that state, your actions will align effortlessly. You will respond differently without trying. You will perceive opportunities where before you saw obstacles, and the world around you will begin to reflect the emotional tone you carry within. So do not underestimate the power of what you feel. Your emotions are not just reactions to life, they are instructions to your subconscious. They are shaping what you experience next. Feel what you wish to experience, and let that feeling become your reality. As you begin to apply all of this, your state, your repetition, your imagination, your inner dialogue, and your emotion, you may feel a surge of motivation, a desire to change everything at once, to transform your life overnight. And while that enthusiasm is valuable, it must be guided by understanding, or it will fade as quickly as it came. Because transformation is not the result of intensity, it is the result of consistency. Many people begin this journey with powerful intention. For a day, perhaps two, they are fully committed. They control their thoughts. They visualize clearly. They speak to themselves with purpose, and they feel elevated. But then, slowly, they return to old habits. Not because they lack ability, but because they have not yet mastered consistency. The subconscious mind is not impressed by occasional effort. It is shaped by what you do repeatedly, by what you return to again and again, especially when no one is watching, when there is no immediate reward. It is in those quiet, ordinary moments that your true direction is determined. You do not need to force yourself into long, exhausting sessions of mental control. In fact, that often leads to resistance. What is far more powerful is a few moments, done with awareness, done daily, done without fail. A few minutes of clear intention in the morning, a few moments of revising your inner dialogue during the day, a short return to your imagined reality before sleep. These small acts, when repeated consistently, begin to accumulate. They begin to form a new pattern. And that pattern over time becomes your natural way of being. Think of it as training the mind gently but persistently. You are not trying to overpower it, you are guiding it. Each time you redirect a thought, each time you choose a new feeling, each time you return to your chosen identity, you are reinforcing a new pathway. At first, the old patterns may still appear. That is natural. They have been practiced for a long time. But if you remain consistent, if you do not react to those old thoughts, if you do not give them your attention, they begin to lose their strength. And slowly, almost unnoticed, the new pattern takes over. This is where patience becomes essential. Not passive waiting, but calm persistence. Trusting that every small, repeated act is shaping something deeper within you, even if you cannot yet see the results. Because the change always happens within first. And once the internal shift is complete, the external world follows with a certainty that does not require force. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural. What once required effort begins to unfold with ease. So do not measure your progress by immediate outcomes. Do not become discouraged if results are not instant. Measure your progress by your consistency, by how often you return to your chosen state, by how gently but firmly you guide your mind back to what you have decided to be true. This is the discipline that creates transformation. Quiet, steady, unwavering. In the end, it is not what you do once that defines you. It is what you do every day. Remain consistent and your new reality becomes inevitable.